So it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, and we go back a ways. So we go back to, I think it might have been her first talk ever, when she spoke to a concepts group 10 years ago. And she was just a baby, just, so new at it and stuff, but she did great then, and she's continued that, and we've been privileged to have her a few times, and she brings a different perspective to the table, just a way of looking at things that we encounter, things that we see, things that we do. She just does a good job of like going, oh, have you thought about it like this? And we all need that. We all need that different perspective, different point of view. So with that, Liz.
Hi. So question, how many people have heard me before? Okay, like a good number. Don't warn anyone. Okay, I'm really good, I'm fun. People are like, yes, I've heard her before.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion things. How many people are super excited about it? Yeah, it's been kind of like a rough year and last year for this type of thing. And you all have an opinion. If people didn't have an opinion in 2019, by 21 they do, because we have been talking about it nonstop. And I want to tell you, I am what they would say I'm a person of color, right? I mean, you're all invisible. Some of you are invisible, just kidding, just kidding. No, I have brown skin. And so people often think that I'm doing this because I have a place at the table, like I'm diverse. But it is not the reason why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I think this is a worthy conversation and it belongs in business. And I think I'm 50 years old. I grew up at a time when you never talked about these kinds of things at work. You never talked about politics at work. How often has politics come up in the last 12 months for you at work? Anyone? Yeah. Never? A lot? How many would say 10 times it's come up, at least in a year? I mean, that would be crazy in the 70s. You would get kicked out of the men's club if you talked about that. Things have changed. Things have changed a lot. And so the other question I have for you is, how many people have gone through diversity training? How many people have never gone through diversity training? Okay, so diversity training in the United States is a like $8 billion industry. We have spent so much money in this country trying to help people understand how to deal with people who think or look differently than us. And then, does that training seem like it's paying off? Do we know how many people feel like they are a 10, most comfortable knowing what to post about something on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram about race, ethnicity, identity? How many people are, yes, I know I'll never offend anyone if I post this. Yeah, so how's that diversity training going? We should be so good at this by now. I mean, in 1975, when I was 5 years old, there were 175,000 Indians from India in the United States. Today, there are millions. And I remember when I was 18 thinking, this will be different for my children. Like whatever I'm dealing with right now at 18 years of age, it's going to be different when they're 18 and 19. And you know what? It hasn't changed. That's so weird to me that I've been here since I was born in 1970, and it hasn't changed. We seem to have a harder time understanding what to say, even though there are more differences than ever. There's more ways to offend. We should be able to figure out how to do it, right? I mean, it seems difficult. So my presentation is really about practical conversations. It's not about unconscious bias or systemic racism. It's not going to deal with any of that. You already know what some of that is. You know enough to shy away from it, right? As soon as someone talks about bias, you're like, I gotta go to the bathroom. And maybe by the time I'm done, people will be done talking about it. Have you ever done an escape to the bathroom? I have. I've been like, ooh, this is going to take a long time. Sorry, people. I've been constipated all week. I'll be gone. When you're done talking about unconscious bias, maybe I'll be 5 pounds lighter. But I wanted to draw you something to help you understand, because I'm really like, because everyone has done diversity training, and because not one person feels like they're that comfortable with it, you're all eyeing me. You should see your faces. Like, you're all like, oof, we have to do this. I really appreciate you showing up. So I want you to, oh. No, that's okay. We have other options. Isn't that funny how that works?
See, the markers are invisible too.
Okay, I'm just gonna draw it on this, okay? So I want you to imagine that you're at the zoo, which those are politically incorrect as well. Lots of deep, you guys are gonna be laughing at the most inappropriate stuff that I'm just telling you. Okay, so I want you to imagine that this is a cage and that there's a tiger in the cage, okay? I'm not doing the tiger, not right now.
Where's the tiger from?
It doesn't matter where they're from. Actually, no, such a good question. Everyone's staring. Okay, so I want you to imagine that there's a tiger in the cage. A huge tiger, and it's a tiny cage. How do you feel? Big animal cramped in a cage. How do you feel? Sad. Yeah, like they're trapped. It's physically uncomfortable to watch. You almost want to pass by because you're reminded, oh, this isn't fair. Like they should be out in the wild. They should be living their life, right? But what if the tiger felt more comfortable in the cage than outside? Because that's all they've known. So what I'm doing today is I'm telling you that you live in a cage and that from the outside it looks so uncomfortable, but you may want to stay in the cage. You may want to stay in the cage because it feels comfortable and it's all you know. And so you're like, what do you say when someone wants you to get out of your cage? What do you say to them?
I gotta go to the bathroom.
You do. You say you got to take a big dump. That's what you say. No, that's not what you say. What do you say? When someone wants you to change the way that you think, but it's the only way that you know, it's the only way you know not to offend people, what do? You start saying things. You say, I've never seen that before. You say, people need to be less sensitive. You say, I wish for the 80s when John Hughes movies didn't offend everyone. Right? That's what you say. But the reality is that if you step out of the cage, if you realize that it's not, you can go back to that cage anytime you want. But for the next hour, I want you to just step out of the cage, okay? Because from my perspective, you look like a big, beautiful tiger that's stuck in a cage. You're like, she said big, beautiful tiger. It's gonna keep going. You're just gonna laugh the whole time and feel bad that you're laughing at a DEI presentation. But that's the way I like it. That's the way I like it. So, okay, so this presentation is about what has changed in the last 18 months. Who feels like the rules have changed in the last 18 months when it comes to, yes, we have a scratch our head and then one here. How many people feel like in 2021, it is really hard to know what to say? Raise your hand. Okay. And when you are with people in business, how many people feel like there's more behind the curtain than ever? That you might say something, or have you made a mistake in the last year? Raise your hand. Is anyone brave enough to say what their mistake is? I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours. You first. Oh, I have a good one. I made such a mistake. Anyone? Who wants to do it? Now everyone's like, why did I raise my hand? I remember. Lance, would you like to? No. Who wants to tell me what their mistake was?
I don't think anybody did.
This is a safe place.
Well,
Yes.
I had a client that asked me about the types of people that were living in the area around it, and I just froze. I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
I
You're like
I
humans
put
with
my
a
head down,
heartbeat.
and they read me and said, he doesn't know what to say, so they kind of just brushed by it.
Yeah. But it feels so uncomfortable
Yeah.
and like you're not prepared for it. Does anyone else have something where they made a mistake before I tell you mine? Yes,
The other
sir.
one that's kind of funny, I had a Mexican guy that I was selling a house to who was referred to me by his black military buddy when he came in from California. He said, I don't want to live where the blacks and Mexicans live.
Yeah.
Holy
Did you
shit.
start laughing?
Okay.
Well, Well, you know, I mean, it's
Reevaluate
interesting that
budget
you
then.
say that, but that's a
It
possibility,
wasn't a
right?
mistake on my part. I just
No.
thought it was crazy that he said that. I was like, really?
I mean, you know, I think that, and this is fair enough, that there are lots of white people that have wanted to live near white people, didn't want to live near white people. They're like, I want to live in a diverse area.
When I had the exact opposite last year, I had a black guy that we were looking, he had a $300,000 budget, but everything we were looking at was predominantly white. He
Yeah.
flat out said he didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So we ended
Yeah.
up buying a house that was half his budget in a predominantly black and Hispanic area.
Yeah, I think the really clear thing is that it isn't what you think. So Ooh and I had one quick conversation before I started, and we were talking about, I was like, oh, I'm talking about diversity. And then he was talking about what's the I, what's the E, what are those things? And then I said I was inclusion, and he said, I've always felt included. And I think one of the biggest rules is that it's not about you, and it's not about what you would do if you were in this situation, that it's really become impossible. So there used to be like 2 or 3 different types of people. So you could like do like is it the pretender, the guy, no, quantum leap. You could like leap into someone's body and kind of imagine what it would be like. And now you literally can't, because one person will feel comfortable with something and another person won't. And the last thing I want to say before I start is that I don't care if you agree with me. You don't need to. In fact, no one will. This is truly a presentation for you to be prepared for some things you might encounter. But literally, you don't need to worry about whether I'm right or not. You really don't need to. Let's just see how it goes. I can see your faces, and I know whether you think that this is a bunch of crap or not. Like you're not poker faces, right? You're not. I want to play poker with you after this. I'm going to take all your money. But it's okay, because I really want you to feel like you can say, I'm not sure I understand that. I'm not sure that I'm going to see that, but it's not about me. Okay, it's about just me presenting some information. Is that cool? Okay, that's about as comfy as I can get with you. All right, so.
What was your mistake?
What? Oh, you want to hear? Oh, I'm hoping you hear. Okay, so this is perfect for this. It's whether you're intolerant or biased, which I'm literally not going to talk about. We're all biased. It just is what it is. It's because of your amygdala. So your amygdala is like the pre-Neanderthal, fight or flight, is this easy or not? Some of you are heavy into your amygdala, like that's what you use. You're like, bad, good, bad, this bad, going. And that's it, and I get 2 seconds and you're like already like, this lady, not my cup of tea, because I just don't like her. Fine, but this was my mistake. So I do this for, like I've been doing this for over a decade, and I gave up because people kept asking me whether I did DEI work, and I'm like, why are you asking me that? I talk about leadership and introverts and extroverts and emotional intelligence and sales, and then I'm like, okay, fine. I'm gonna make a living off of this because you keep asking me for it. And I know why, it's because I'm loud, right? And I have really white teeth, okay. Yeah, so I'm doing this, I was filming these videos for this training company, and it wasn't even about diversity. And I said, in a recording, that they shouldn't be a slave to urgency. Honestly, you can't say slave to urgency right now. It's 2021. You can't say slave. And I had a white person telling me that I couldn't say slave. And I just wanted a trap door to open and just to drop through. Like, seriously, if me as a person of color who does this all the time can record themselves saying, don't be a slave to this and that, and then deliver that for payment so that a white person can tell me that that's not appropriate, should I not be fired? Why did they hire me to do this? Like, seriously. So are you all like, who knew that? Who knew you shouldn't record yourself saying, slave this up? Anyone? Yeah, everyone. Everyone knows it's a dumb idea. You know, you can't say things about, you can't use these metaphors. Plantation, slave, you just can't use them right now. It doesn't even matter if you want to, you can, and just see how that goes for you. For me, they just edited it out. They go, we're just gonna edit this out. You actually said it quite a lot. And I was like, oh man. So what does that have to do with this? Well, I was raised in a fundamental Christian church. And there's this biblical language that the Apostle Paul in the Bible says being a slave to your urges, being a slave to whatever. So I was just using those words. And the things that are inside of me are just fundamentally leaning one way or another. Things that I don't live in, I don't go to a fundamental Christian church now. It's rooted in me. There are things that I do and say. I always ask people. So you see two guys that are at an ATM, and one is an African-American male who's wearing like a sweatshirt and jeans. And then there's this clean-cut white guy. And they're both taking money out. How much money do they have in the bank account, and how much money are they taking out? And why do you think that way? Because everybody has a thing. You are thinking that everything I say is dumb, right? I want you gotta sit right up here. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying?
No, but that thought just doesn't come to mind with me.
I know, so maybe
Why would
this will not.
anybody have that thought?
Well, here's the deal. The rules have changed, and what you think is not as important as what people are feeling. So we are all biased in some way. We are all biased. There's literally no way, because your brain works in blocks. It sorts red and blue. It sorts what you felt and what you don't felt. And why I can appreciate that you think everyone has the same exact amount of money in the bank account and they're all taking the same out. Most people make assumptions about all kinds of different things. The people that you're serving, the people that you're in business with. So I'm just saying to you, these biases are just there, and that's just kind of the way it works. And it's not about whether or not the bias is one thing or another. It's about the fact that we just have that based on what we think. I'm creating biases in you right now. The next Indian lady is going to have a real tough time. Because they're going to be like, this one Indian lady gave a presentation, let me tell you what she said. I mean, I'm going to pull out my Indian accent. But don't ask the next lady to do that. It's not going to go well for you. But I'm going to do it. And then you're going to think like, oh gosh, those Indians, they're very loud and opinionated and they just go after you. But maybe not. We create biases all the time. That's all I'm going to say about that. It's impossible not to be. I'm whipping through this. Okay. So here's my basic premise, okay, for the whole entire thing is everybody was born with a place at the table. Imagine a big, huge banquet hall. And every time someone's born, they get a place at a table. Like you have a place at the table. You get a chair, a plate, a fork, a knife, a spoon, a napkin, a cup, and then that's your stuff, right? Whatever it is, you can say whatever you want to say about it. Education or financial things or opportunities or whatever. And then what happens over time is suddenly I lost a cup and I don't know why. Culturally, somebody rearranged what we had. There's nothing new. You can only redistribute. So maybe suddenly one person has 5 plates and another person doesn't have any plate. Like I'm stuck with just a spoon going, what happened here? And so part of what we will do is make space for people at the table. What do you think you're making space for? Do you think it's all financial? What is it? What are you making space for? You're making space for how people think, how people feel, what their experience is. Like these are the things that people are born with. They're born with whatever their life is. My experience is what my experience is. Definitely not going to be what your experience. I'm from Minnesota. Oh yeah, I have run in 30 degree below zero weather. And I say, oh, and I say, so yeah. And I also talk a lot before I leave. And then I keep talking. My goodbye is about an hour at best because I'm from Minnesota. My parents are immigrants. And they're from India, and I have that experience. And I grew up around a lot of Scandinavian Lutherans, and I know what hot dish is. and that's hot dish in bars. That's what it is. Anyone understand the hot dish in bars?
It's casserole.
No, it's a hot dish. It's a hot dish. No. That's what I'm not. And so what I want you to think about as business people, you're in the people business. You're not really in houses, you're in the people business. And think about when you talk to someone, you're not feeling sorry for them. It's not about politically redistributing wealth or anything like that. But every single person has a place at the table. And is there something that we can change so that everyone has the same opportunities to express, to make money, to live their life in the best possible way? There are people all over the world that want to live here. I mean, you won the lottery. I was born here. And there are people that wish they were born here. There are people that risk their lives and the lives of their families so that they can be here. Because this is a place where it's not that hard to make space at the table. It's also not that hard to see whether people need space at the table. Because there's so much. Have you gone to see the toilet paper situation? You know how many different kinds of toilet paper we have in the grocery store? We got the single ply. Why does anyone buy a single ply toilet paper? You just wrap it around your hand. And we got, you can buy one. You can buy the most toilet paper anyone has ever seen in their life. The rolls that are so big that you can't stick it on the thing because it's too big. So you got to wait, and it sits on top of the back of the toilet until it's small enough that you can put it in there. And then you can go to the jelly aisle. I mean, how many different kinds of jelly are there? There's the raspberry with the seeds, but then there's the raspberry where they took the seeds out and made it taste like raspberry. And then there's the peanut butter and the grape together. We have so much. We have so much. Whenever someone tells you politically there's not going to be enough, I don't think so. I think there's always a way, but we have so much that we have to think about what are we going to do to make sure that everyone who lives here, everyone who belongs here has a place at the table. Does that make sense? This is my diversity thing. All right. Oh, it doesn't want to change. Oh, there we go. All right. So we're going to talk about the rules. And as much as it feels like it, it's not about judgment. It's about what's happening. And what I'd like you to do is think about how you want to handle it. So I'm not going to tell you how to handle it. I'm going to give you some suggestions. But I'm not necessarily telling you this is the way you have to do it. That is a typical DEI presentation. This is a lot harder. People want to be told. In my last presentation, someone said, well, just tell me a list of things to say. I just want to think. I'm like, I can't. I'm the person who recorded myself saying slave to something. So it's not like that. It's like, what are we going to do to prepare for how the situation has changed? Yeah, this is just me kind of like not pointing it to the right thing. Okay. So you may or may not need this work. I think yes. I'm going to tell you an old way of doing something and a new way of doing something. If you want to say that sucks, I am here for it. You can go, that sucks. I miss the 80s. Because I kind of do miss the 80s. I miss, has anyone seen 16 Candles? There are so many issues in 16 Candles. Anyone watch it with a 2021 eye? You should go back and watch it. It's like a lot. But I thought it was the best thing ever. I just wanted that Jake guy to bring me a cake for my birthday. And where was he sitting? On the table. And then they kissed, and that was the end. How many people wished that they had Jake Ryan? Anyone? Yeah. Oh, so great. Okay, so here we go. Rule number 1, you never call anyone a name or a label unless you want to fight. Okay? Do you remember being mad because someone called you a name? Like in 2019, do you remember? You're like, they can't call me that. Someone is going to call you intolerant. Someone is going to call you racist. And if your first reaction is to say, no, I'm not, you're too sensitive, that's not right. If you feel very, very stressed out about it, someone's going to say, like if it's something about identity. How many people are having a hard time with pronouns? Anyone? Yeah. I've talked to numerous people, everyone else. What's your pronoun? Do you have it in your signature line? Those who did not raise their hand. Is it in your Twitter? Okay. Lance was the only brave one. Was there another person? Lance. You're like, me. So some people, they're hung up on the pluralness of the pronoun. Yeah? They're like, you can't be a they. Well, I may have the desire to be called a they. And does it matter what you think or what they think? And if you're talking about how you're uncomfortable and you're joking around about how one person can't be called they, someone might call you a name. Someone might out you. Now, why would it be stressful if someone calls you racist? Why would it be stressful? What could happen if someone calls you racist? Like they just called you a name. You can go back and make an omelet and be done with it. What's the stress of someone calling you racist?
Perception.
You think you're not, and perception. What's the perception?
If somebody's calling you that, there are going to be a segment of people that are going to believe it, whether it's true or not.
It might change your reputation. Why would it matter for your reputation if you are something? Why would it matter?
Future business.
Biases.
By business. Who said business? Yeah, like it could affect your business. Have you watched people get canceled? Anyone? That's some scary stuff, isn't it? Getting canceled. So when somebody calls you a name and you have fear, what is the part of your brain that freaks out? This is a test.
Amygdala.
Yeah, it's the amygdala. Your amygdala is like, ah! That is what your brain does because you can't, that leads to all kinds of things. But what can you do? Here's the new rule. New rule. People are going to call you something. This is the new world. People are calling people. That language is getting flung around every 2 seconds. I have been called that. So white people, my friends, my very best friends have said I'm racist. So, okay. So how many people feel surprised by that? Do I seem racist? I love everybody.
I'm
No.
not surprised because in the current climate, that's the problem. It's like anything you say, you're going to offend someone.
Yes.
And even when you're trying so hard
Yep.
to do the right thing, there is no right thing because every single person has a different opinion.
It's like you gave, so you need to be paid a little bit of the percentage of what I've been given because you're totally helping me right now. Thank you for saying that. Yes, you cannot get away with not offending people. You need to get up every morning, put your feet in your slippers and go, it's a great day to offend someone. Because if you are breathing, if you are looking, if you are doing anything, you are going to offend someone. That is the world that we live in.
You can't win.
You can't win. You can't win if the rules are that to win, you have to not offend.
Right.
You can't do it. And the changing is happening constantly. You know how like it used to be all gray? And now you're like, you look at a house, you walk in and it's freaking gray. And you're like, oh geez, we can paint a little beige into here. Can you paint one wall beige? Because gray is out. And we're so comfortable with that. And then it's gonna be another color. Who remembers the colors of the early 2000s? What were they? What were they? It was like a solid light green
Your earth tones.
and a mauve.
Honey oak.
Yeah, oh, that oak. And then we had what? What was the year that the tomato and that green? You had an accent wall that looked like a tomato.
I'd say red was popular in the late 2000s.
It was late 2000s? And what about the mustard? Do you remember that gold mustard?
Yes.
It was a quick one, right? If we can function where colors in houses change, we can handle this. I promise you, it's really about what our amygdala is doing. Our brain is like, no, not another change, not another change. Meanwhile, we're painting a wall another color. We can handle it. It doesn't matter if African American people want to be called something different. It doesn't matter if there's something new happening every second. You are going to offend. And so what do we have to know how to do? We have to know how to react to it. I'm here to tell you, I am not going to give you rules to not offend. I can give you advice, but there's no way around it. And you know what? When someone tells you to relax, how relaxed are you? Do you feel, usually it's the guys that do this, I'm sorry. But what happens when you told someone to relax? What happened? Did they just fall into narcolepsy? Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're like, I'm relaxed. You want to give me relax? I'll give you relax. Yeah, say relax one more time. Right? So you can't tell someone not to be offended. What do? Have you ever tried to unring a bell? Have you ever tried it? It is not possible. Has anyone said something offensive to their mom? Has anyone not sent a thank you note to someone that they're supposed to? Has anyone, I offend my mom all the time, by the way. It's just like a game now. But, I've been offended by things that you would not think are offensive. You can't do it. There is something different for each person. So if I went up to you, what is your name?
Bill.
If I said, Bill, okay, Bill, I talk to you, I say something really rude. I can think of 100 things that are rude. It's a gift. But I won't say any of them. So I say something, and then I go up to you. Who are you?
Paul.
So Paul is what you would call, according to the check boxes, a white guy. Would you not agree with that? Is that right? Now, do they look alike to you? Are they exactly the same? Now, don't say yes.
They've got the
Say yes.
same golf tan. I mean,
We got, but here's the deal. When white guys sit in a room, they sit at the front and they have to have their own table. Is that right?
It is.
And so every time, because he agreed with me, I can go up to every white guy in this room. Look, there's another one. Own table.
well, that's just because nobody likes
Yeah, I
it.
don't know what's going on with the two of you. And this whole crowded thing back here, I don't even know what to make of that. This is what we do. We're like, okay, thank God I met an Indian woman. I know everything. Now I'm gonna go up to the next Indian person and be like, I met this Indian woman, Liz, and she said this, and I'm sure you like curry too. And then you start digging, and you're digging, and we can see the top of your head. You have dug so far deep underneath the level, and now you're going to dig some more and go, oh, I didn't realize that would offend you, and it would offend her more. Keep digging, right? Because we cannot figure this out in the United States. We are a freaking experiment. We are not. India has been around for thousands and thousands of years. We haven't even made it. How old is the United States? Anyone? This is like one of those David Letterman on the street things, like who's the president? Anyone want to say around how old the United States is? We haven't even hit 500. You get what I'm saying? We don't really know if this isn't going to implode. It is our responsibility. How do we implode? Let's do like one of those big bubble things, where they bounce off of each other. Let's do that for a while. Right? I'm offended. You're offended. Well, I'm offended. Well, you're offended. Well, I'm offended. My husband, that's how he fights with me. If I say I'm mad, he's like, you're mad. Well, I'm mad. And I'm like, you can't be mad. You were just sitting there. Nothing was wrong. Now you're suddenly mad because I'm mad. That's how it goes. So what we need to do is know how to react to it. Can everyone surrender to the fact that you are just going to continue to offend and make mistakes? Do you feel more comfortable knowing that you might make mistakes every day of your life? What if we just surrender to that? Can we just let our adrenal glands have a break for a second and realize there is no rule book and that we're kind of a cool thing that's happening? All these different people from all these different places constantly changing rules. Everyone has the freedom to be whatever they want to be. I almost swore.
Last time you were here.
Can you insert that? What weird, right? Weird that this can happen. And the only way we're going to make it through is if we decide to do so. So here's the rules. Number one, no matter what anyone says, you have to appreciate what they're saying. It doesn't matter how screwed up it is. You would not, I'm telling you, I have a comedy routine about the things that people say. It's really funny. Like people are they just say the funniest things to me. I think it's me. It has to be. But the first thing that I do is I say, you have that opinion. Like you have that's your experience. Like I want to say they need to lock you up, but I don't say that right away. I say, you have that, that's how you feel. And you know what? I really want to know why they think that way. That is my first question. Why do you think that way? Like, what is it that led you to think that way? When someone's saying, well, I think this way because this is the easiest way to think about it, I offend the least people, or I have a lot of Black friends, or I used to live in DeWitt, Iowa, or whatever it is. I'm like, so what was it that shaped you? You know what shaped me? My dad, because they only allowed Indians to come in with so much money. So my dad had like $36 in his pocket. He's like a millionaire. He's 81. He's not living, he still resoles his shoes. And he knows where the cheapest gallon of milk is. It seems like there's not a lot of payoff, but that's just me. But my perspective of watching him sacrifice, you know what else really impacts me? My mom and dad are in love. Freaking 50 years, over 50 years, they still lock the door when I'm home. Like, what are they doing in there? Literally, what are they doing in there? They're just like this. I don't know what they're doing. But they are in love, and they still act like they've never touched each other. Like, every time. Like, I'm their child, so there had to be something that happened. There's two people that came out of them. like whatever immaculate conception they're pretending to
Slip,
have.
trips, and falls.
But like every time my dad comes up to my mom, she's like, "Oh, honey, stop." I'm like, honestly, just do it. You're 50 years. You can do whatever you want with each other. But that impacts the way that I think. Growing up in Minnesota impacts the way I think. You impact the way that I think. What you do, how you respond impacts the way I think. So you can ask them, why do they think that way? And then you continue in the spirit of knowing each other. Like that means that you do not control the situation, that you learn and live with people, that it's not your job. Honestly, I'm gonna just say, like, are people, some of you are exhausted because you are trying to make sure that everyone does what they're supposed to do. And it looks like it's exhausting to me. You're waking up and you want to know what you want to make sure I have a vaccine, or you want to make sure I didn't have a vaccine. You want to make sure I say a certain thing, or you want to make sure I don't say a certain thing. So I'm not signing up for any of that. What I'm saying to you is I'm here to have a conversation with you. And then I don't worry about whether my reputation is going to be tarnished. What I want to know is, why did you call me? So when this person called me racist, I said, what makes you feel that way? And what is impacting you? And what am I saying that is making you feel that way? I'm not saying I'm going to change everything. But it's disarming when I say to someone, well, thank you for letting me know that you're feeling that way. They're like, thank you. I put on my boxing gloves. I was ready to fight with you. And I'm like, well, I just want to, at least you told me. At least you gave me a chance to have a conversation. How many people would say thank you if someone called them racist? How many people would want to drive over someone? Yes, there's one person, don't call him racist. I mean, he is going to drive over you several times. No, I'm just kidding. Number 2, old rule. Gosh, my mom and dad, they refuse to call anything racist. It's really funny to me. Like the number of things that have happened to them that I'm like, that is actually like racist. They're like, no, it's not. They just didn't know any better. Like they really think that white people are just these bumbling, like running into walls. They didn't know if there was a wall there. That's okay. And I'm like, no, we can expect more of people. And one of the examples is that he worked at a college. He was vice president of a college in which he could never be president unless he was Scandinavian and Lutheran. And he raised millions of dollars for that college, like millions of dollars. And I was like, that's an exclusion based on what you look like. No, it's not. It was just a religious preference.
Is this your dad?
That's my dad, yeah. He refuses to this day. He was preaching at he's a preacher too. He was preaching at what do you preach at? A church. He was preaching at a church,
Well, it depends on your religion,
and they
what you're
wanted to get him out. They didn't there was a doctrinal thing, and they said, after 10 years of listening to them, they said they couldn't understand his accent. And they didn't want to tell him. And I said, Dad, that's racist. And then my mom goes, no, they're just jealous. I'm like, oh, okay, they were hiding their jealousy. So they're like, what are you saying? I can't understand you. Like that. Okay, I said that. I did. Look at, no one laughed. Good job. Nice job. It's not a very good accent either. But so it used to be in my parents' generation and mine, whatever, I'm 50, half a century. That's like old, man. Wow. It is. I gotta dye my hair now, regularly. So, you'll be forgiven for not knowing. Now that's the old rule. You could say, oh, I didn't know. Now, that's not what's gonna happen. The new rule is that you're held responsible for what's going on. You're held responsible for what you don't know. What's the problem with that? Being held responsible for what you don't know.
I feel like we gotta educate them.
Yeah. What'd you say?
Because you don't know them.
You don't. It's kind of like a weird catch-22, right? You're supposed to be responsible for something you don't know, but you're supposed to learn it, but then you screw up and you're held responsible for it. Hence rule number 1. You have to learn. You have to keep learning. And there's the Google. The Google is so good. The Google really changes lives. I gotta tell you. People ask me all the time, do you get tan in the sun? And I'm like, yes. And I also get wet in the water. The 2 sources of life. I don't have special skin that repels UV rays. It's so dumb, in my opinion. But some of you probably thought that, which I apologize that I called you dumb. You got to say thank you and move on when I say that. What?
I understand.
Yeah. Why do you feel that way, Liz? Yeah. See, look at you. Look at you. So you are held responsible. That's the new rule. Don't worry about it. All you need to do is continue to learn and be ready for when you don't know. So when my dad was my age, he knew everything. He was done learning by the time he was 50. He just basically went to work and came home and listened to Walter Cronkite, and his wife made him food, and then they did God knows what with the door locked, and that was his whole life. But that's not for us. When I come home, I'm on the clock of humanity, learning and learning and learning. You're not supposed to say you guys. How many people have said that? Oh, that's a hard one. Hey guys, you guys, and then I like want to put the words back in my mouth, and they're just floating out there like some Sesame Street skit. You know what I'm talking about? We have to keep learning. And yeah, you could go down, good luck to you, going down the road of saying, we shouldn't have to do that.
What do
You are
say?
going to be the, what'd you say?
So what do you say?
Hello. Greetings.
So you're telling me everybody on YouTube that always answers everything with "Hey guys,"
Well,
every video,
but look at the date.
they're still today.
It's one of those things in business.
No,
Here's the thing, you're so right that it's illogical, and that if you're there, if you want to fight the logic of it, you could, but I just want to make money and make friends. How many people are like, make friends, make money? How many people want to change what everyone is saying on YouTube? You two need to sit together. No, I'm just kidding. I know that that's not what you're saying. I know that's not what you're saying. I'm saying that it's like we have to decide who feels like they don't have a lot of energy by the end of the day in 2021. Because you're just trying to maneuver. Like, it's tiring. And so I'm giving you, like, I would like you to be your best self. And, you know, you might have to toss out, hey, guys, for a minute, and then maybe you get to have it back. But you got to know what it is. You got to be like, oh, man, I'm working on that, or whatever. You got to continue to educate yourself. And these people, whether, you know, some people like the liberal mafia, it's like, maybe, but hey, whoever's controlling the monopoly board right now, this is the rules. And if you want to be successful, part of what you need to do is Google. Golly, the Google. And it's like in your hand at any time. And you can Google. Somebody Google, do brown people get darker in the sun? Someone give me that. Yes, someone's going to do that.
Google's always accurate.
You know, I think that right
100% of the
now,
time, accurate.
Google, do people get darker in the sun? Do you think it's accurate?
I'd ask a black friend of mine, maybe.
Right. So that's fine.
That'd
If
be
that's what
Google.
you want to do, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's all good. How many people feel like, yes, I'm a walking Google. Google me. It's inappropriate to say Google me, by the way. Might get in trouble. If you have to ask questions, ask permission. Sometimes people don't want to be asked where they're born, where they're from, why they do that. Do they like curry? Do people get taller than 5'7"? Why is your child so tall? Is your husband white? Do you like white people? Perhaps I do like white people, but maybe I just like Ken, my man of 20 years. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But you can, if you ask permission to ask questions, that would be big. And also, would you like to be asked something every single day of your life? Would that be your favorite thing? What does it say?
Because dark people have more trouble absorbing UV rays than us white.
Do they get darker?
that's white.
It says it's more problematic from a health standpoint.
Absolutely. You get darker faster. I do.
Yeah.
Being not white man.
I remember learning this one in college.
Yeah.
When my black
So
buddy
good.
kept a towel over his head.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Okay. Now the next thing, I think following diversity advocates would be really good too. It's helpful. Be ready to change your thoughts. Don't go down with the ship. That's all I have to say. Rule number 3, never talk about politics in front of anyone. Who has that rule right now? Who's like, unfriend anyone who posts anything that stresses you out? Yeah, I know, this one's stressful. This is another thing. These are just rules. These are rules to help you in your business. People are passionate, and it's going to come up. You are very passionate. Yes, you. You and I are going to go out and have drinks. It's going to be fun. Anyone want to watch?
I'm not drinking.
Yeah. No, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Is there something in there? I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding.
I wish.
So it's going to happen. People are going to talk about things. And so what can you do? You can ask questions like, so my friends and I don't agree on everything. I didn't really know how much we didn't agree on everything until, what's the president? I can't, but the one before this one. A lot of conversations came up. And so I started asking them questions like, if you had to choose between this and this, what would you choose? And why? Like, I just want to know why. I want to know more about why. And then, do you have any personal experiences about something? Or what scares you about my viewpoint? Like, you feel frustrated right now. What scares you? I cannot not talk about anything that's important. It's too hard. But you can do it in a way that makes people closer to you. I feel like I'm better friends with my friends, and we still don't agree on everything, but we really understand each other. And I think in business, you can ask people questions. You don't have to be like, oh man, I might have to ask, they're talking about something I might have to ask. You can say, hey, why do you feel that way? Or, again, what do you think about this versus this? And at least they're talking to you and they feel known. People like to be heard. People love to hear themselves talk. I mean, that's a thing. You talk to yourself in the mirror, don't you? And you always agree. Isn't that nice? Okay, I want to get through all of these. You can be silent and not be part of the problem. So it used to be that if you were quiet and you didn't participate, you could be considered not part of the problem. And the new rule is that you have to talk. How many people have felt like, has anyone been accused of something? Well, you didn't do anything about it. Has anyone assumed anything? Like when everyone is quiet and they're a bystander and you don't say anything, what do you think people are assuming about you?
That you agree.
That is the new rule, whether you like it or not. There are things that have happened to me in public where someone will say something to me and the people around will say nothing. It happens a lot online. There'll be something that happens and I'm like, why isn't anyone saying anything? They must agree about it. But really they're like in the bathroom. They're like, I gotta go to the bathroom. And so what we want to do is learn how to speak up. We need to learn what's uncomfortable to you. So like, it isn't that it's happening to me, it's that it's happening to you. What makes you uncomfortable? Let's make it an us problem. Like instead of it just, oh man, that's happening to Liz. No, it's happening to you too. Like I have a husband who is a white male, and there are things that are happening to him. He can feel attacked. He can feel misunderstood. He can feel silenced. He can feel like his opinion doesn't matter in the American dialogue. And we talk a lot, and what happens to him is happening to me. We're not fighting. We don't feel like we're part of two different things. We're like, I say, you matter, and your things that you do matter. They make a difference. Like your voice matters. Every single person has a place at the table. You have a lot more power than you think. So if we can be in a situation where we realize that it's us, and that we don't allow certain things to happen, that we're going to speak up, and that it's not every man for themselves, that this is one of those experiments where we're doing this together. I mean, if you know anything about the GDP, we're stuck together. All of our stuff is stuck together. If you know anything about the housing market versus the stock market versus what's going on at the grocery store versus what's happening at the gas station, it is all connected. You know that, right? We are freaking connected. So if something is happening to one person and you think that that is not acceptable, you can speak up. And I know people won't like it. They'll be like, whoa, settle down. And it's like, yeah, like relax. Is that what you mean? Don't say it to me. Don't say it. But it's okay. It's okay. As a group, we can say, were you ever a kid that stood up for someone? Have you ever done that? Have you ever been in the presence of someone who stood up for someone and you're like, finally, thank you for doing that. It's not that the person can't handle it. It's not that they can't get through the day, but collectively we can make the room a better place. We just have to explain we're not going to do it like that. That's not how we're going to do it. We're going to do it like this because this is better. This is best for everyone. I think that's sort of like a new politics, like not letting someone at the top make all the decisions and deciding that we're going to do things a certain way. And to be honest, part of why I was so excited about talking to you is because I do think that this is where the change happens. Like when people have a lot of contact, you are building communities. Like you have a chance to help people feel understood every day. You have multiple opportunities. And you don't have to think it's a diversity thing, you have to think it's a community thing. Okay, so heavy. Does anyone need to go to the bathroom, or someone just went? Is that okay? Rule number 5, you can keep your professional life and personal life separate. How's that going for you? Is it working out for you? I can't at all. I'm everywhere. I have a TikTok. It's called Mama Nead. If you want. Okay, so here is the new rule. The new rule is authenticity is required. Do you feel like I am being fake? At all? You know, like my mom, have you ever, so my mom, she would yell at me. Like I was infuriating. So she would yell at me. She'd be like, like whatever it was. That's all I heard was, and then someone would call and she would pick up the phone and be like, hello. Has anyone ever felt that? Where you're like, stop being like that wait until you get in the car. Does anyone can relate to that? That's the way I was raised. I was raised that you kept everything that was distasteful, which is any negative emotion, any laundry, anything. I mean, the worst thing I could do would be to act up in public in front, so people could see that my parents were having a hard time parenting me. By the way, I was an undiagnosed ADHD. So and I didn't get diagnosed until I was 22. So you can imagine, I was a little hard to deal with. Especially at a fundamentalist Christian church with a bunch of Lutherans and Scandinavians around me. It was hard for Minnesota. That's why I'm here in Iowa. So the deal is that be authentic and forgive yourself. Like, stop being fake. Forgive yourself. Like, be real, be honest. I would much rather someone says whatever they want to say, however uncomfortable it might make everyone, because at least it's real. At least we have a place. I mean, we're like a bunch of people with maps, and we keep giving each other wrong locations. And we're driving around like, Lance, you told me you were here. He's actually over there, but he's like, this is where I want to be. So pick me up here. And I'm like, you're not here. I can't, now you got to walk up. Have you ever tried to pick someone up that gives you the wrong directions? I mean, you're realtors. That has to happen all the time. Does it happen?
Siri's never wrong.
Right, exactly. Siri's never wrong. Have you ever had a person who is listing a house tell you things are a certain way and then walk in and they're not? Has that ever happened? Ever? Give me an example.
It's clean as a
Yeah, it's super clean, and there's like hair in the drains.
Yeah, right.
Flush your poops down the toilet. I know this obsession with the toilet. It's a good analogy, though. I mean, things are happening, right? So be real. How much more helpful is it to you when a seller tells you what the actual situation is? How many buyers have said their credit is fine, and then you're like, no, you can get $20,000. Maybe you should get a boat that's used and live on it. Anyone? Has anyone had someone misrepresent their credit? How does that work? Yes. How does that work? Does that irritate you at all? What would you prefer?
Transparency.
Honesty, transparency. So I think that's it. And I think you have to stop trying to be correct and grow. This is a moment to grow. If you are doing things that you did in 2019, you will be left behind. You can feel satisfied with yourself. That is just fine. You can do what you want, but there are new things. There's just new ways of doing things. And it doesn't mean that everyone is the same and that you can figure out one way and then it applies to everyone. It's a nonstop, day in and day out, meeting people, because these two are not the same, even though they're sitting in exactly the same spot at their tables and kind of doing the same thing with their arms. We can have a new experience with this one over here. He's using a different arm to hold his head up. You know what I'm saying? They won't move either, because do not move on my account. Okay, so we're wrapping this up, and I would love questions and comments. I really would. So real quick, just a couple guidelines. First of all, the mistakes are inevitable. Like, they're really inevitable. You cannot get it right. Stop talking about politically correct. It literally doesn't exist. What it is that you need to have a few more tools for how to handle things. And you have some rules in real estate about equity and about the way that everyone should be able to get the same opportunities, and every neighborhood should be the same, and that the buyer should be able to choose, and that your opinions and your thought processes should not be put on someone. But reality is that that's the way we've been doing it, right? I mean, when I was a kid and memorizing verses, slaves to anything didn't matter. But guess what? Now it does. So we can't say that. Learn how to forgive yourself, learn and move on. Maintain healthy curiosity about each other. You do not know a thing about Indians from me. I just want you to know, I really did not help you at all. So don't step into that pile of, because it's just not the way it works. You have to just learn about people, and you will get trends, and those things are trends, but there's always a plus or minus, right or wrong, right? I mean, that's the way it works. And remember to ask permission. I do love it when people say, I have some things I want to ask you. Can we talk about it? I'm like, bring me a drink. And then I'll talk. That's kind of how I deal with it. It needs to be really expensive scotch that probably costs you $400 a bottle. Then you can ask any kind of questions you want, and then they leave because they don't want to do that. So I'm like, well, I don't want to do that either. So we're good. Take it personally. I would love if you would, instead of telling me what your experience is, ask me what mine is. I would love that. And then you remember the table. Go, I got 4 cups. Can I give you one? Because I'm like I'm taking a plate and pouring liquid on it and trying to use it as a cup. Like really look and see if the person has enough room to be whatever. And if they say, I've never had a problem with it, that's okay too. Like it's just about taking it personally. It's about, it's happening to you, it's happening to me. See, I just said that. Learn to speak up. Learn how to say. How many people are honest Midwestern people that swallow their feelings? Raise your hands. Yes. Yes, you can barely even raise your hand and not because you are busy pushing your feelings down. You can say that makes me uncomfortable. You can say I would prefer not to be here when you do that. You can say, and sometimes someone's like, well, that makes me uncomfortable, and they're like, right, Liz? And I'm like, I'm fine, but I'm glad it makes you uncomfortable. I feel like we're together on this. Like, learn to speak up. It's okay to say, I feel like that post is problematic, and you might not have thought about this. I don't want to convince you, but I just want to let you know your impact may not line up with your intent. Don't assume. Like I just said, you know nothing. You know more about Minnesota than India by knowing me. I love the Vikings, and you should know it. Does anyone like the Vikings? Like there's a bond about how terrible they are and how it's never going to happen. But the Bears are going to get it's just so sad. And how much I hate the Packers. Like that's the thing. Oh, I hate the Packers so much. Okay. Be flexible. How many people are flexible naturally in their personality? Raise your hand. How many people struggle with flexibility? Where they're like, I don't want to have to change it. Okay, this is kind of interesting to me. People are not diverse. Situations are, but people. So we always say people are diverse, and so a white heterosexual Christian male is the standard. And then everyone who is different from that is diverse. Puts a lot of pressure on the white Christian heterosexual guy, don't you think? What if we're just different from each other? And that we are all so different from each other, and we have to figure that out. We have to figure out how we're going to rearrange things so people get the table service that they came into the world with. Like, what are we going to do about that? It's painful. People might have to give something up sometimes, or not say something, but it's for the best for everyone.
Who says that a white heterosexual man is the standard, though?
Exactly.
Well, okay, go ahead. What is your reading
No, I'm
about
just
it?
saying, who says that's the standard?
Well, what is diverse? Are you considered diverse? So thank goodness you're here because you're diverse.
I think you're supposed to teach me.
No, I don't know. I feel like we could co-teach this. I really do. I feel like you need to rehire me and we can both be up here together. I think this room will have 3 times the people in it.
Well, I just think that you just said straight heterosexual white Christian man is the standard.
Yes.
I don't agree with that, because what percentage of the population does that actually equate to?
It doesn't. So when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, when they think about hiring, when they think about neighborhoods, they say, well, this type of person, it's culture.
Okay.
Okay? So I can give you an example. and this is, we're hitting on, if people have to go, they have to go. When people talk about hair in marketing, they say healthy hair is silky and smooth, or silky smooth hair. There are people in this country that their hair will never be silky and smooth, but it's super healthy. So what's happening is you're leaving someone out of the dialogue. And for years, there were kids that are raised in a thing where healthy hair is silky and smooth. So maybe it's the dialogue, maybe it's the culture, maybe that's what it
I don't think they're trying
is.
to exclude anybody. I think they might be trying to specifically target a certain group
Sure,
to
sure, yeah.
increase our.
So
increase our profit.
you're diverse, and that's good, right? What? Go
I
ahead.
think history has given us that.
Yeah.
That stereotype is
I can
being.
tell you
Yeah.
this is silky smooth.
Yeah.
The leader.
Like this
Yeah,
is almost
it's
baby
not,
soft.
I didn't make up the rules. What I'm saying is that actually, what I'm saying is, I am not, a person is not diverse, but we're different from each other. We don't need to talk about diversity. Like if someone is a person of color, or if someone is a different religion, that means that, oh, good, we have some diversity. When they say hire for diversity, what are they talking about? Your company. When they say, we want to hire for diversity, what are they looking for more of?
Not white Christian males.
Right.
People of color.
Right, it's something, and what I'm saying is that,
Diversity is the wrong term. Inclusiveness is the right term.
yeah, belonging.
Where it's like diverse or not diverse or
Yeah.
inclusive, where you got, I mean,
Yes.
how can you chalk things up into two categories?
You
when got
can't.
Thousands of different categories.
I don't think that it's working anymore. I think that the check boxes don't work anymore, and that it really
You
is,
never have.
yeah, right, we're agreeing.
We should tell lenders this, check boxes don't work in underwriting.
Yeah, it would be a change of culture. So is it uncomfortable when I say that that is the standard? When I say
It's
that?
not uncomfortable. It's
Can
just
you
false. It's false.
No, I agree with you. That is just the way that we started. So when you go to, what do we celebrate? Do we celebrate the holidays? Are there a lot of Christmas trees around?
Mhm.
Yeah. So one time I have a friend who's Jewish, and my other friend was like, we should invite Elaine over. And I'm like, no, we should not invite Elaine over for Easter. Because why? She's Jewish, why? It's a thing, the bunnies, and we celebrate Easter. Why do we do that? Because the majority of the people in the United States at this point identify as Christian or choose the Christian holiday. But Elaine doesn't want a ham and an Easter basket. And if I think like that, then I'm not getting it. We're different from each other. You gotta learn the things. Does that make sense? So it's not me that's making the rules, and what I am saying is that we can talk about this differently. We don't have to talk about it in terms of diverse people. We can talk about it in terms of different from each other. Okay. Can I get it? I feel like I've run out of juice. Okay.
Thank you.
How many people felt uncomfortable just now? Oh, like half of you. Raise your hand. How
I
many
felt
people?
inspired.
Why? I didn't feel uncomfortable. Why? What's uncomfortable?
I
What's
felt
the,
like you were being attacked.
yeah, I was not being attacked. I was not, but someone was expressing a different, wanted to express their part of the conversation. So I'm saying one thing, they're saying another thing. Is it a battle of who's right? Or is it the fact that in this room, those two viewpoints live? Like, we're not kicking anyone out. We're not going to, I mean, I really would love anyone who wants to dialogue with me in the presentation. Because I want you to see that you can have people disagree with you. You can have people feel like they're saying something like attack, and you can remain whole. And you can say, well, you know, I've thought about it. I've read about this. I've really come up with this opinion. And at the end of the day, we're actually saying the same thing. Isn't that funny? How many times have you argued with someone, but you're actually agreeing? All the time with my husband.
I wasn't arguing with him.
I know, but other people felt it.
I didn't.
No.
I find it humorous.
And some people thought it was funny. Okay, any other comments or questions? Everyone's like, no. I'm giving you permission without really expensive scotch. Okay, so I want to know, I need, go ahead.
You talked a lot about differences in political, but then
Yeah.
not religion. I mean, I don't, why that be any different? You know, I kind of grew up in an atmosphere where you always said, don't talk about politics or religion. So I took the attitude of, that's exactly what I want to talk about. So those
Yeah.
two things are most important.
Yeah.
Apparently. So I don't understand, I mean, to me, differences in views on religion aren't much different than differences in views on politics. You
Yes,
can have that conversation and still have
Yes.
different views.
Yeah.
And
I agree with you.
I assume that in this room, there's 100 and some people, there's 100 and some
I
different
did not know
views.
Yes,
And I'm gonna offend
I don't
half
think
of
it's a
them
huge
by
population or
raising
percentage.
population.
yes, yes, and that it's okay to express your authentic self and that we're okay to have a
About 2
conversation.
years ago,
It's not about
helped,
convincing each
sell
other,
the
it's about
church
understanding.
in Douglas.
So really
She's
quick-
Baptist.
Can I, oh, go ahead, yes.
I have a 4-letter acronym that I've taught in a lot of classes of what not to talk about. It's not the greatest acronym, but it's RAPE: religion, abortion, politics, and economics. Those are the 4 things you probably shouldn't bring up with a stranger.
You gotta jumble those letters around though.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Religion, economics,
I think you should change it to
pair, par, or REAP. How about REAP? I agree with you, Chris. Thank you. But no, those are the 4. They don't go there.
I mean, what does everyone?
And rape, I mean, don't talk about that either, that's sensitive too.
Crying.
Okay. Yes, yes, okay, well, keep learning.
No, let's not talk about it.
Can I get one person to say what they are gonna take away from this that I spoke about?
Great.
So, yeah, that is great. Anyone? Yes.
That you can't win. I think the hardest thing last year is that for people who are well-intentioned, who
Yes.
just want to do the right thing, and
Yes.
you can't win.
No.
You're gonna offend every day.
Yes.
And just accepting that you're gonna have to just humble yourself and move forward and do your best.
And just keep connecting. Just make sure your impact
I
is.
think my response of last year has just been going through a hole on any of these conversations because you can't win. You're gonna
No.
offend half of them. You're gonna hurt somebody's.
But I really want you to stay out of that and like stay in it. Anyone else have something they? Yes.
Just always be willing to learn.
Yeah. Yes. I love that.
Camera.
Ask questions.
Yes, I love that. Make assumptions about people in the front. Okay, well, as people are signing up, you can. Yes.
Thanks,
Everybody.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.